Risk-taking in poker, business and life. This is the speech that I've delivered over 500 times now for so many different organisations I've lost count, and motivated the people within those organisations to step outside of their comfort zone and take a risk. It shows that risk is a many-faceted thing. You know, whenever we take a risk, we are embracing a bit of danger. Things can happen, left field things that we don't expect. You may remember this photo, it went around on email a couple of years ago. There was some debate about whether it was real or not. In the end, the photographer won an award, so I think it is real. I don't think that is. I don't think that is a real photo, but that is someone embracing risk into their lives there. You know, sometimes risk is just going to happen to one poor, unlucky individual. Doesn't make it any less painful when that happens. Sometimes it's going to affect us in our small, intimate moments, sometimes intensely intimate. Sometimes it's going to happen to us in much more public and embarrassing situations. As this gentleman found out, the subject of a photo story in a national newspaper, ladies and gentlemen. We do not want these things to happen to us. And therefore, let me start by sharing with you the story that I always tell at the beginning of this speech, and that is the story of myself when I was boating at the age of 6. There's the scene, very idyllic, sunlight streaming through the trees, father-son bonding happening there on the lake. And then one Sunday, all of that was thrown into jeopardy because someone had an accident. I don't know to this day exactly what happened, but it's enough to throw our council into a panic. Did they have the necessary insurance? Were they going to have to put lifeguards around the lake? They didn't know. But being a council, they sprung into action, ladies and gentlemen. They erected a sign. I'll never forget this sign. It had a picture of a man falling out of a little boat and into the water. And underneath the picture were the immortal words, "Remember, boating is fun until death occurs." Now, I've never actually known whether that is a good or a bad warning for boating, but folks, it's very appropriate for risk-taking. Risk-taking is also fun until death occurs. So we need to be careful. And what I always say is that there is a line here that we all draw in our personal and professional lives, a line beyond which the consequences of our decisions are simply unacceptable. And therefore we call this line the line of unacceptability. What's interesting is that a long way away from that line is an area over here where, broadly speaking, we feel safe, we feel happy and we feel comfortable. And therefore we'll call this our comfort zone. And therefore between the edges of our comfort zone and the line of unacceptability is a middle ground. An area of potential risk, of potential hazard, of potential consequence, but also an area of potential opportunity. Risk-taking in poker, business and life is a speech about those opportunities. Take for a moment the toss of an evenly weighted coin. And let's just imagine that each time I spin it represents an opportunity into which you can bet or invest £1 of your hard-earned money. It's tails, I'm afraid. You lose £1. It's heads, you win. Each time in this situation that you win, I'm giving you an even money return. That is exactly the same amount back that you've invested into it. What would happen if you carried on making that bet or investment? Of course, in the long run, you just break even. Now let's change one tiny parameter of this experiment, the return. Because now, instead of giving you an even money return, I'm going to give you a 10-to-1 return every time you are successful. So, you invest £1, it's tails, I'm afraid, you lose. Another £1, it's tails again, we're £2 down. A third £1, it's tails again, £3, a fourth £1, it's heads, you win. But not £1, not £3, but £10. 50% of the time, you lose £1. 50% of the time, you make 10. If you carry on making this investment now, of course you're effectively earning money. But in order to make that return, you need to be prepared to lose 50% of the time. And somebody, somewhere, will call that failure. Risk-taking in poker, business and life is a speech about opportunity. And every single person that I've ever spoken to at some point has seized those opportunities. The question is, what is the value of opportunity and what stops us from seizing them most of the time? Fundamentally, It's a speech about risk in its elemental form. It has metaphors for right-brain people to get inspired, but it also looks at the maths of risk for left-brain people. What, for example, is the value of the toss of a coin, or the turn of a card, or the spin of a wheel? This is not a speech about gambling, but a speech about the decisions that we make and the risks that we take every single day of our lives. And most importantly, of course, it's a speech about the elephant that is always in the room, and that is fear of failure. What is it? What causes it? And how do we overcome it? Or more importantly, actually, how do we embrace it? Acknowledge it as that which makes us human and ask how we can use it as the very force which is going to drive us to achieve our ultimate long-term goals. If you've never worked with me before, Risk-Taking in Poker, Business and Life is the speech I recommend. It's motivational, it's inspirational, it's both a call to arms and a handbook for success, and it is that about which I am most passionate.